News Radio 600, Kogo.
Right now it's 60 degrees downtown. Kogo News Time, 6:12.
Among millennials, the words old school might conjure up thoughts of, I don't know, pre-computer days, and they might be right.
But they also need to get a little old school savvy if they're going to make it. Communication skills analyst Jim Whidden is joining us here on the Kogo News Live Line. Hi there, Jim.
Good morning.
So explain this old school to these new kids.
Well, old school is really going back centuries, even thousands of years, and bringing the wisdom that has always been foundational to society, and just trying to bring that back into the new school, if you will. For a generation that's supposedly the most connected, we seem to be the most disconnected, at least on a personal level. And those old school interpersonal communication techniques still work and can be a great advantage for youngsters that will take it seriously.
So there's something called soft skills. What are soft skills?
Soft skills are otherwise known as interpersonal communication skills. So in other words, being able to build rapport instantly, using words that speak to your education and your level of sophistication and intelligence. Asking great questions. You're known by the questions you ask much more than by the statements that you make. Being able to tell things in story form so that they'll be remembered. These are all the soft skills that are very important in any generation.
So how are millennials blowing it when it comes to job interviews, and what should they do?
Well, they're blowing it because, first of all, they haven't scrubbed their vocabulary of words such as like and so and awesome. These are words that really tell an employer within just a few seconds what they're dealing with. The mindset that a millennial should go into an interview with contains three things. They need to show that they can be good communicators, that they're coachable, and that they love to learn. These are three qualities that any employer is looking at in an employee, whether they're a millennial or not. And so where they're blowing it is they're not able to communicate kind of between the lines, if you will, that they have these capabilities.
Now, these kids are generally highly educated. They have been to college. They have degrees. How is it that going through college, they didn't, fix that vocabulary, you know?
Well, that's a great question. Personally, this is my opinion. I don't think that's the job of college. I think that's the job of parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles. That happened for me as a baby boomer when I observed and imprinted my parents as they used language and as they interacted with people. Because we live in this age of distraction, I call it, there's this tyranny of the rectangles. And I have rectangles too. I'm looking at a couple right now as we speak. But by letting those dominate our lives, and in particular this generation, it's not really an issue of using technology. It's about overusing or abusing it. And so I'm not sure colleges are doing anything to combat that. But, we at the old school, that's why I started the old school. We're going to try to help in that regard.
Well, how can a millennial ace an interview? Okay, let's say they don't use that language and things like that. And I've also heard stories of millennials taking their phones in with them and checking them. Is that really something that goes on?
Yeah, well, first of all, they need to leave the phone in the car or at least in the off position. I mean, even checking a phone in a waiting room before the interview can indicate that you're not a serious candidate. And that may sound a little strange, but I think it's certainly true. We've put together, in my book, The Old School Advantage, we've got do's and don'ts in an interview. So we spell it out very clearly. Here are the things you do. Make sure you do these things, and the things that you definitely don't do. But really the critical part of the interview, and this is what I would emphasize, is what we call the reverse interview. And that's when you're asking questions after the questions have all been asked, if that makes any sense.
No, it makes total sense. And that's what, a lot of times I've been hired because of the reverse interview, and that's something that people need to do. It really shows that you're interested and you're asking good questions.
Right. Yeah, the worst thing an interviewee can do, a candidate can do, is when they say, do you have any questions, to simply say, no, thank you. I think this covers it all.
Right.
They just lost the job, in my opinion.
All right, Jim, thank you very much. That's good advice from Jim Whidden, who is a communication skills analyst, joining us on the KOGO News Live Line.